Just speak it to me.
Somebody's asking the vote here. Muting me. Okay. So we'll just share the screen.
Are we on mantra 12, Maharaj, or 11? It's 12, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll just go back to the beginning. Let's move that. It's a bit slow today. So we'll just go through what we've covered so far. Keep going through it. It leaves a impression eventually. Here we are. Yeah, so look, here we are. Yeah, so we set up once again with the Vedas. This is the authority of what we're reading from. Then in vocation is the subject matter, establishing the subject matter as bona fide. That's a personality of Godhead. Then 1, 2, 3. If he's in charge of everything, then we should use everything in his service. And if we don't, then it's actually pointless and endeavoring in this lifetime, because we're just actually entangling ourselves more. And so then, it talks about 3 kinds of devotees. The Kanishta are one who just in the beginning stages, and then the mid stage, Madhyam, who is able to differentiate between different classes of devotees and individuals, so that he can actually, give Krishna consciousness in appropriate situations. Madhyam Adhikari. And then there's the topmost, who's called the Uttama Adhikari, or Maha Bhagavat, as it says here. So we're looking at how a devotee on that platform recognizes the Supreme Lord. And so it's explained for our benefit, and what his characteristics are, how he works in this world, always different from it, and also how we see the living entities in this world. So these things we can aspire for by the information that's given in those purports. And then the next one is 9 to 11, is the absolute truth and the relative truth in terms of, acquired knowledge. Relative means it's true for this particular situation, time, place, and circumstance. So that's material knowledge, but absolute knowledge is actually not changed. It's spiritual. Just like the soul doesn't change, the body only changes. So what is that truth that doesn't change? And how do we obtain it? And how can we recognize the difference between vidya, which is truth or knowledge, and avidya, which is untruth or ignorance? So we conclude that by saying that we have to understand both, so that we can differentiate between the two. We have to simultaneously live in this world and understand how things are working, so that we can actually, in that situation, apply spiritual knowledge. So this is the great art of doing all work, Prabhupada said. We don't change anything, but we learn how to use everything in a positive way for spiritual realization. And so that's called yukta vairagya, engagement with detachment. We use the world, but we're not attached to it. So that's an impersonalist book. A personalist will use it for the benefit of the owner of everything. And then now we're starting a new section, 12 to 14. And this one is the absolute and relative truth. So absolute, once again, absolute and relative worship. So this is called Sambutim and Asambutim, or Sambutam. So Sambutim is the truth, and Asambutim is the relative worship. These different kinds of worship, and we just started reading this 12th chapter, and we started talking about Asambutim, that which is ignorance. If you remember, we're reading about this material world and people's activities and how they actually be, how their particular worship or activity are in the mode of darkness or ignorance. Yeah. So now we'll go back to the 12. Here we are. Impersonalists and demigod worshippers do not attain real knowledge. So demigod worshippers, they're interested in getting material benefits. So that's ignorance. Impersonalists, they can come to the point, if they're very, very serious, they can come to the point of, if I put that there, is that in the way? Or can anybody, you maybe not be able to see it? No,
That's fine.
Can't see it. And am I covering that picture up? No. I've got something on my screen which you probably haven't. That's the all the names, Okay. So yeah, as we were saying, but real knowledge, real worship is obtained through approaching one who's in knowledge. That we don't just speculate, but we approach a person who has knowledge and the literatures that have knowledge, and then we can understand that truth or that type of worship, which is Sambutim in relation to the Supreme Lord. It's always spiritual knowledge or spiritual worship. So the only real spiritual worship is worship of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Everything else is either impersonal, which means we have we don't have complete knowledge, and therefore what will happen is we won't be able to maintain it. We won't have any taste. We'll return to material activities. And then demigod worship is, just worshipping for some ulterior improved material condition of life, improved material enjoyment. Okay. Have you got your books? So we got to page.
Buzz Lightyear, Jesse, and Woody the characters.
I've got it on my Kindle.
Non-player 4-7 Rex dominations.
What page is it?
Yes, so it must be.
What?
Yeah. It's on.
You're breaking up. Anyway, I'll find it, don't worry. Let's find it. It's mantra 12. And we're about halfway through. Let's have a look. The problems of life. Has anybody got that?
Yeah, I've got it.
That's all. Start reading then.
Okay. The problems of life. cannot be solved simply by going to the moon planet or to some other planet above or below it. Therefore, Sri Isopanisad advises us not to bother with any destination within this dark material universe, but to try to get out of it and reach the effulgent kingdom of God. There are many pseudo-worshippers who become religionists only for the sake of name and fame. Such pseudo-religionists do not wish to get out of the universe and reach the spiritual sky. They only want to maintain the status quo in the material world under the garb of worshipping the Lord. The atheists and impersonalists lead such foolish pseudo-religionists into the darkest regions by preaching the cult of atheism. The atheist directly denies the existence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the impersonalists support the atheist by stressing the impersonal aspects of the Supreme Lord. Thus far, we have not come across any mantra in Sri Isopanisad in which the Supreme Personality of Godhead is denied. It is said that he can run faster than anyone. Those who are running after the other planets are certainly persons. And if the Lord can run faster than all of them, how can he be impersonal? The impersonal conception of the Supreme Lord is another form of ignorance arising from an imperfect conception of the absolute truth.
Yeah, so it's just like, we only have material it's 1880. The absolute truth, we realise that the absolute truth's not this, it's not that, it's not the other. And then we think the absolute truth is actually formless. And you know what I mean? By negation. But we don't understand the positive form that there is, like the reflection of a tree in water. The water is the illusory reflection, but there is a real alternative. So that's spiritual knowledge, not just to, say that there's nothing, like pulling the plug out of the, the reservoir of water. It's there. The material world is there. So where's it coming from? It's coming from reality. That's what we're talking about. Worship the reality, not the temporary. Okay, my Parishwari, Mataji.
Maharaj, I'm just listening tonight. My computer's not working, so the screen isn't showing the book, I'm afraid. Thank you.
Okay. So next on the list is Kalpesh. Wow. I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it.
Yes, that's how it is pronounced, Maharaj. Hare Krishna, Maharaj. Just give me. I haven't opened the PDF yet. Can you give me one minute?
Well, we can come back when you find it.
Yes, please.
We'll move
Yes.
on to Don, Prabhu.
The ignorant pseudo-religionists and the manufacturers of so-called incarnations who directly violate the Vedic injunctions are liable to enter into the darkest region of the universe because they mislead those who follow them. These impersonalists generally pose themselves as incarnations of God to the foolish who have no knowledge of Vedic wisdom. If such foolish men have any knowledge at all, it is more dangerous in their hands than ignorance itself. Such impersonalists do not even worship the demigods according to the scriptural recommendations. In the scriptures, there are recommendations for worshipping demigods under certain circumstances, but at the same time, these scriptures state there is normally no need for this. In Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated, 723, that the results derived from worshipping the demigods are not permanent. Since the entire material universe is not permanent, whatever is achieved within the darkness of material existence is also impermanent. The question is how to obtain real and permanent life.
Yeah. So that's more or less retracing what we're saying. So carry on for the next. Well, we'll change. Mataji Thakurani, can you read? Sita Thakurani.
The Lord states that as soon as one reaches him by devotional service, which is the one and only way to approach the personality of Godhead, one attains complete freedom from the bondages of birth and death. In other words, the path of salvation from the material clutches fully depends on the principles of knowledge and detachment gained from serving the Lord. The pseudo-religionists have neither knowledge nor detachment from material affairs, for most of them want to live in the golden shackles of material bondage under the shadow of philanthropic activities disguised as religious principles. But a forced display of religious sentiments, by a forced display of religious sentiments, they present a show of devotional service while indulging in all sorts of immoral activities. In this way, they pass as spiritual masters and devotees of God. Such violators of religious principles have no respect for the authoritative acharyas, the holy teachers in the strict disciplic succession. They ignore the Vedic injunction Acharyopasana, one must worship the acharya, and Krishna's statement in the Bhagavad Gita 4.2, Evam parampara praptam. The supreme science of God is received through this disciplic succession. Instead, to mislead the people in general, they themselves become so-called acharyas, but they do not even follow the principles of the acharyas.
Yeah, so last in 9 to 11, it talked about dhira and adhira, or the sober and the unsober. So now it's relating to that same, more or less in the same way that the followers of the non-bona fide path and the ones who follow the Sambhutim, or the Supreme Personality of Godhead, they do it by the dhira or the acharya. That's even more information about a dhira. A dhira is one who's in control of his senses, but above that is somebody who's an acharya, one who's proficient in devotional service. And so therefore they're able to, we can become freed from material life by knowledge, by impersonal knowledge and proper meditation. But we can't remain in that condition. So we need an acharya, not just a dhira. And an acharya can actually take us to and connect us with the reality, and we can worship that. Okay. So, Padmalochan, welcome. And do you know where we are? You have to unmute.
I do, Maharaj. Sorry, my apologies. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
So we're just at the end. These rogues in human society are the most dangerous elements. And for want of religious government, they pass on without being punished by the law of the state. They cannot, however, avoid the law of the Supreme, who is clear that these envious demons in the garb of religious propagandists should be thrown down into the darkest region of hell. Excuse me. It is confirmed in Sri Isopanisad that the pseudo-religionists are heading towards the most obnoxious place in the universe after finishing with the spiritual mastership business, which is simply for the matter of sense gratification.
Yeah. So that's, all forms of sense gratification. As soon as we don't worship the absolute truth, there's some sense gratification. It's only when we're completely absorbed in worship that we're actually free from sense gratification. And so even in devotional service, we can still be actually aiming at sense gratification, because the service is in different modes of nature: passion, ignorance, and goodness. So that's why we follow principles of, cleanliness and rising early and as much as possible, and, eating properly, so that we can be fixed in the mode of goodness, and then we can start to perform devotional service in the mode of goodness by the direction of the acharya. And even if we're in the lower modes, by that direction, we can still be brought to pure devotional service. Just like there's an example in Srimad Bhagavatam of, I think, did I give it last time? Diti. She was the mother of the demons, and, the Hiranyakashipu and Hiranyaksha was her sons, and they were killed by Vishnu on behalf of Indra. And so she wanted to have a child who would actually kill Indra. She tricked her husband, Kashyapa Muni, into giving her a benediction, and when she asked for it, he was actually it was sort of speechless. He didn't expect that, but he was intelligent. He gave her a particular activity which is actually devotional, and by the end of performing that particular set of rules, a set of purificatory process, she was actually a devotee, and she lost all animosity towards Indra. So she was raised from from devotional service in the mode of ignorance by practicing in that mode. So this is therapeutic. We just carry on with what we're doing and follow the rules of devotional service, and we're raised to the highest platform. Okay. Now we've got Barbara Mataji. Do you want to read? Okay, we'll go on to below that is iPhone. I'm not sure whose iPhone. Okay.
I think we're at the end of the chapter, Maharaj, as well. We're on to the 13th.
Oh. Yeah, we're starting Mantra 13 now. So let's see who's not read yet. Jack, have you got the page?
I have, yeah.
You want to read?
Yes, certainly.
I'll just recite the verse. Anyat ahur asambhavat. Anyat ahur asambhavat. Iti shushrumadhiranam yenascha vichachakshire. Carry on.
Okay. It is said that one result is obtained by worshipping the supreme cause of all causes, and that another result is obtained by worshipping that which is not supreme. All this is heard from the undisturbed authorities who clearly explain it. I read the purport. The system of hearing from undisturbed authorities is approved in the mantra. Unless one hears from a bona fide acharya who is never disturbed by the changes of the material world, one cannot have the real key to transcendental knowledge. The bona fide spiritual master who has also heard the Shruti mantras or Vedic knowledge from the undisturbed acharya never presents anything that is not mentioned in the Vedic literature. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that those who worship the Pitras or forefathers attain the planets of the forefathers, that the gross materialists who make plans to remain here stay in this world, and that the devotees of the Lord who worship none but Lord Krishna, the supreme cause of all causes, reach him in this spiritual sky. Here also in the Sri Isopanisad, it is verified that one achieves different results by different modes of worship. If we worship the Supreme Lord, we will certainly reach him in his eternal abode. And if we worship demigods like the sun god or moon god, we can reach their respective planets, without a doubt. And if we wish to remain on this wretched planet with our planning commissions and our stopgap political adjustments, we can certainly do that also.
Okay. Yes, so it talks about, what did you say now earlier on? Talks about the Pitris, worshipping the Pitris. So, I'll say, sometimes devotees are confused about whether the Bhagavad Gita should be changed, it's been, but this is one example where it was absolutely necessary to change it, is that there was one verse it was in Bhagavatam actually, it was talking about the planet of the trees. And they were completely out of context with the rest of the flow of the Bhagavatam. And so everybody were confused. What's this planet of the trees? You know? And then they study it and they realize that in the purports, you know, in the general thread of the Bhagavatam, they were talking about the ancestors. And so they realized, and when it was actually the Pitris. So, you know, do you think we should change that or leave it the same? You know what I mean? No, we should leave it the same. Don't mess about with Prabhupada's books. No, I mean, we have to be a little bit intelligent as well, you know. Because, you know, Prabhupada, when he was translating, he's got a thick accent. And some things they didn't maybe hear so well. Okay. So who's next? We've got Barbara. Are you there? Oh.
You're muted, Barbara.
Oh.
Right, already. Nowhere in the authentic scriptures is it said that one can ultimately reach the same goal by doing anything or worshipping anyone. Such foolish theories are offered by self-made spiritual masters who have no connection with the parampara, the bona fide system of sorry about this, can't get my tongue around it. Disciplic succession. The bona fide spiritual master cannot say that all paths lead to the same goal, and that anyone can attain this goal by his own mode of worship of the demigods or of the supreme or whatever. Any common man can very easily understand that a person can reach his destination only when he has purchased the ticket for that destination. A person who has purchased a ticket to Calcutta can reach Calcutta, but not Bombay. But the so-called spiritual masters say that any and all paths will take one to the supreme goal. Such mundane and compromising offers attract many foolish creatures who become puffed up with their manufactured methods of spiritual realization. The faded instructions, however, do not uphold them. Unless one has received knowledge from the bona fide spiritual master who is in the recognized line of the disciplic succession, one cannot have the real thing as it is. Krishna tells Arjuna in the Bhagavad Gita.
Go on, Abhashit, see if you can. The verse. Evam parampara praptam imam raja shriyo vidahu sakale neha yatmahata yogo nashta varantapa. His supreme science was thus received through the chain of disciplic succession, and the saintly kings understood it in that way, but in due course of time the succession was broken, and therefore the science as it is appears to be lost. Bhagavad Gita's, that's a chapter on transcendental knowledge. Okay. Wasn't read yet. Sandeep, do you want to read?
Yes, Maharaj. So should I start from the supreme science or the next one? When Lord Sri Krishna?
Yeah, that one.
Okay. When Lord Sri Krishna was present on this earth, the Bhakti Yoga principle defined in the Bhagavad Gita had become distorted. Therefore, the Lord had to reestablish the disciplic system, beginning with Arjuna, who was the most confidential friend and devotee of Lord. The Lord clearly told Arjuna in Bhagavad Gita 4.3 there that it was just Arjuna was his devotee and friend that he could understand the principles of Bhagavad Gita. In other words, only the Lord devotee and friend can understand the Gita. This also means that only one who follows the path of Arjuna can understand the Bhagavad Gita. At the present moment, there are many interpreters and translators of this sublime dialogue who care nothing for Lord Krishna or Arjuna. Such interpreters explain the verses of Bhagavad Gita in their own way and postulate all sort of rubbish in the name of Gita. Such interpreters believe neither in Sri Krishna nor in his eternal abode. How then can they explain the Bhagavad Gita? Krishna clearly says that only those who have lost their senses worship the demigod for paltry rewards. Bhagavad Gita 7.2, chapter 23. Ultimately, he advises that one give up all other ways and modes of worship and fully surrender unto him alone. Bhagavad Gita 18.66. Only those who are cleansed of all sinful reactions can have such unflinching faith in Supreme Lord. Others will continue hovering on the material platform with their paltry ways of worship and thus will be misled from the real path under the false impression that all paths lead to the same goal.
Okay, thank you.
I've got a question, Maharaj.
You go on then.
It says the disciplines. It says the thingy was lost. The siblings. How was it lost?
Well, it's like in this age, religion's almost completely covered up. We see there's many churches.
Sorry, it said distorted. It said the Bhakti Yoga principles defined in the Bhagavad Gita have become distorted. How was it distorted?
Well, they become distorted when it's talking about people who are interested in sense gratification.
Mm-hmm.
So, we talked earlier about knowledge and that which is disguised as knowledge, if you remember, in the last section, 9 to 11. So it says that there's ignorance and ignorance disguised as knowledge. Like, one person can be completely ignorant of the process of life, but somebody who tries to propose a process which is not bona fide, then that's even worse. So what they do, in order to appear bona fide, they'll start quoting from scripture with a distorted meaning. And, Mayavadis do that. They read Shastra and give an impersonalistic meaning. And then, many, many yogis, and they still come into the West, they come in with something which people will actually be happy about. So they provide a yoga process which will actually attract people, and it's not necessarily going to do them any good. So they're distorting the original teachings. And that's why Prabhupada said he was so successful, because he presented Bhagavad Gita as it is. And therefore, those who were serious, it actually made sense to them and they started practicing.
So this was going on back at the time of the Battle of Kurukshetra as well, this sort of thing.
Well, I don't know to what degree, but the 4 ages. In the first age, they're all, more or less on the platform of perfection. And then in the next age, they start to, they're not so much, one of the 4 pillars of religion starts to become less, so they perform another type of yoga. So it's already crept in at that time. There's some deviation. And then in the next stage, there's 2 legs of religion which are not actually being practiced properly. So it creeps in more. Now in the Kali, we're only left with 1. And that's truthfulness. And, even that is actually being very much distorted, So it's just the nature of this world. This nature of this world is that, you know, the nature of the spiritual world is everything's actually true and blissful. This world is actually covered. And so, you know, just like take this body, for instance, we think, you know, a healthiness is actually the you know, the standard of life to be healthy, but it's not really, you know, because everything dies. You know, there's so many diseases and bacteria just waiting to actually attack this body. So everything is, you know, this material world means decay. The only thing that's keeping the body healthy is that we're young and we've got health to fight it off. So it's the same with knowledge, you know. There's so many ignorant people and so much ignorance about, and it's being used to actually attack religion, religious principles. And when people hear it often enough, they accept it. At least for some time. Okay. Well, it was Sandy last time. So have we covered every Kalpesh? Did you have something? You got your hand up, Kalpesh. Did you want to say something, or is it just a mistake? Okay, so we'll carry on. So it's back to you, Jai Krishna. iPhone, I don't know. iPhone. Are you there? Probably don't even know it says my iPhone. Okay, so we'll carry on with Jai Krishna.
Where are we? Krishna clearly says.
Oh, I've forgotten that. Let's have a look. Where are we?
In this mantra of the Sri Isopanisad.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
That's it, okay. In this mantra of Sri Isopanisad, the word Sambhavat, by worship of the Supreme Cause, is very significant. Lord Krishna is the original personality of Godhead, and everything that exists has emanated from him. In Bhagavad Gita 10:8, the Lord says, Aham sarvasya prabhavo mataha sarvam pravartate iti mata bhajanti mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their heart.
Just one bit of information. You know, when you're reading verses, when it's got a dot underneath the H at the end, it's usually aha. And but if it's at the beginning or in the middle, it has you don't pronounce it. It's like it's got a different sound. It's like tah, you know, like a throaty sound, like matah, like that. Okay. Carry on.
Here is the correct description of the Supreme Lord given by the Lord himself. The word Sarvasya Prabhava indicate that Krishna is the creator of everyone, including Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. And because these three principal deities of the material world are created by the Lord is the creator of all that exists in the material world. The Lord is the creator of all that exists in the material and spiritual world. In the Athartha Veda, Gopala Tapani Upanishad 124, it is similarly said, he who existed before the creation of Brahma and who enlightened Brahma with Vedic knowledge is Lord Sri Krishna. Similarly, the Narayana Upanishad, number 1, states, then the Supreme Person, Narayan, desired to create all living beings. Thus from Narayan, Brahma was born. Narayan created all Prajapatis. Narayan created Indra. Narayan created the 8 Vasus. Narayan created the 11 Rudras. Narayan created 12 Adityas. Since Narayan is plenary manifestation of Lord Krishna, Narayan and Krishna are one and the same. The Narayana Upanishad 4 also states, Devaki's son, Krishna, is the Supreme Lord. The identity of Narayan with the Supreme Cause has also been accepted and confirmed by Sripad Sankaracharya. Even though Shankara does not belong to the Vaishnava or personalist cult. The Atartha Veda, Maha Upanishad 1, also states only Narayan exists in the beginning, when neither Brahma, nor Shiva, nor fire, nor water, nor stars, nor sun, nor moon existed. The Lord does not remain alone, but creates as he desires. Krishna himself states in the Moksha Dharma, I created the Prajapatis and the Rudras. They do not have complete knowledge of me, because they are covered by my illusory energy. It is also stated in the Varaha Purana, Narayan is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and from him the four-headed Brahma was manifested, as well as Rudra, who later became omniscient.
Okay. So that's like, this is what it says in the Bhagavad Gita in the, what chapter is it? 10. This is a seed verse. The purport is the same as that. You know, just the seed verse of the Bhagavad Gita are proving that Krishna is the Supreme and how is the Supreme in the first verse. So that's reflecting the same things in this particular section. Okay. Okay, Don, can you read?
Yeah. Thus, all Vedic literature confirms that Narayana, or Krishna, is the cause of all causes. In Brahma Samhita, it is also said that the Supreme Lord is Sri Krishna, Govinda, the delight of every living being and the primeval cause of all causes. The really learned person knows this from evidence given by the great sages and the Vedas. Thus, the learned man decides to worship Lord Krishna as all in all. Persons are called Buddha, or really learned, when they fasten themselves to the worship of Krishna only. This conviction is established when one hears the transcendental message from the undisturbed Acharya with faith and love. One who has no faith in or love for Lord Krishna cannot be convinced of this simple truth. Those who are faithless are described in Bhagavad Gita as mudhas, fools or asses, 9:11. It is said that the mudhas deride the personality of Godhead because they do not have complete knowledge from the undisturbed Acharya. One who is disturbed by the whirlpool of material energy is not qualified to become an Acharya.
Carry on, you can read a bit more if you want.
Okay. Before hearing Bhagavad Gita, Arjuna was disturbed by the material whirlpool, by his affection for his family, society, and community. Thus, Arjuna wanted to become a philanthropic, non-violent man of the world. However, when he became Buddha by hearing the Vedic knowledge of Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Person, he changed his decision and became a worshipper of Lord Sri Krishna, who had himself designed the battle of Kurukshetra. Arjuna worshipped the Lord by fighting with his so-called relatives. In this way, he became a pure devotee of the Lord. Such accomplishments are possible only when one worships the real Krishna and not the fabricated Krishna invented by foolish men or without knowledge of the intricacies of the science of Krishna described in Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam.
Okay. You can, if you got any queries, just put your hand up or raise my attention. Okay, Mataji, can you read?
According to the Vedanta Sutra, Sambuddha is the source of birth and sustenance, as well as the reservoir that remains after annihilation, Janmadi Asya Yata. The Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentary on the Vedanta Sutra by the same author, maintains that the source of all emanations is not like a dead stone, but is abhijna, or fully conscious. The primeval Lord Sri Krishna also says in the Bhagavad Gita 7:26 that he is fully conscious of past, present, and future, and that no one, including demigods such as Shiva and Brahma, knows him fully. Certainly, half-educated spiritual leaders who are disturbed by the tides of material existence cannot know him fully. They try to make some compromise by making the mass of humanity the object of worship, but they do not know that such worship is only a myth because the masses are imperfect. The attempt by these so-called spiritual leaders is something like pouring water on the leaves of a tree instead of the root. The natural process is to pour water on the root, but such disturbed leaders are more attracted to the leaves than the root. Despite their perpetually watering the leaves, however, everything dries up for want of nourishment.
Just a minute. Okay, carry on.
Sri Isopanisad advises us to pour water on the root, the source of all germination. Worship of the mass of humanity by rendering bodily service, which can never be perfect, is less important than service to the soul. The soul is the root that generates different types of bodies according to the law of karma. To serve human beings by medical aid, social help, and educational facilities, while at the same time cutting the throat of poor animals in slaughterhouses, is no service at all to the soul, the living being.
Okay. Pardon Lord Emperor, you want to read?
Thank you, Prabhu Maharaj. The living being is perpetually suffering in different types of bodies from the material miseries of birth, old age, disease, and death. The human form of life offers one a chance to get out of this entanglement simply by re-establishing the lost relationship between the living entity and the Supreme Lord. The Lord comes personally to teach this philosophy of surrender under the Supreme, the Sambhuta. Real service to humanity is rendered when one teaches surrender to and worship of the Supreme Lord with full love and energy. This is the instruction of Sri Isopanisad in this mantra. The simple way to worship the Supreme Lord in this age of disturbance is to hear and chant about his great activities. The mental speculators, however, think that the activities of the Lord are imaginary, therefore they refrain from hearing of them and invent some word jugglery without any substance to divert the attention of the innocent masses of people. Instead of hearing of the activities of Lord Krishna, with pseudo-spiritual masters advertise themselves by inducing their followers to sing about them. In modern times, the number of such pretenders has increased considerably, and it has become a problem for the pure devotees of the Lord to save the mass of people from the unholy propaganda of these pretenders and pseudo-incarnations. The Upanishads indirectly draw our attention to the primeval Lord Sri Krishna, but the Bhagavad Gita, which is the summary of all the Upanishads, directly points to Sri Krishna. Therefore, one should hear about Krishna as he is by hearing from the Bhagavad Gita or Srimad Bhagavatam, and in the same way, one's mind will gradually be cleansed of all contaminated things. Srimad Bhagavatam 1:2-17 says, by hearing of the activities of the Lord, the devotee draws the attention of the Lord. Thus, the Lord, being situated in the heart of every living being, helps the devotee by giving him proper directions. The Bhagavad Gita 10:10 confirms this. Dadami buddhi yogam tam yena mam upayantite.
Yeah, so it's revealed knowledge. This is what it means by revealed knowledge. It's that we can't understand it by our intellect. We can only understand it when Krishna gives us the ability from within. And then it becomes, so we don't have to be an intellectual person, actually. That's why everybody can practice this process. We just have to be sincere. And even though we may not be able to, recite slokas and we can't speak very well on philosophy, still we'll be very philosophically sound by Krishna's mercy. That's a real thing. Just like the gopis, they were considered to be simple village women, but they actually defeated Krishna with philosophy, So how is that possible? Because, they're actually pure devotees. And therefore their full knowledge, a pure devotee is full of transcendental knowledge. Okay. Who's not read it? Jack, is it? You want to read?
Sure. The Lord's inner direction cleanses the devotee's heart of all contamination produced by the material modes of passion and ignorance. Non-devotees are under the sway of passion and ignorance. One who is in passion cannot become detached from material anchoring, and one who is in ignorance cannot know what he is or what the Lord is. Thus, when one is in passion or ignorance, there is no chance for self-realization. However much one may play part in the part of a religionist. For a devotee, the modes of passion and ignorance are removed by the grace of the Lord. In this way, the devotee becomes situated in the quality of goodness, the sign of a perfect Brahmana. Anyone can qualify as a Brahmana if he follows the path of devotional service under the guidance of a bona fide spiritual master. Srimad Bhagavatam 2.4.18 also says, Girata Ona Andhara Pulinda Pulkasa Abhira Sumba Yavanaha Kasada Yaha Ye Nya Ka Papayad Apasya Shrasyaha Sudhayanti Tashmai Prabhavai Vaishnave Namaha. Any low-born person can be purified by the guidance of a pure devotee of the Lord, for the Lord is extraordinarily powerful. When one attains Brahminical qualifications, he becomes happy and enthusiastic to render devotional service to the Lord. Automatically, the science of God is revealed before him. By knowing the science of God, one gradually becomes freed from material attachments, and one's doubtful mind becomes crystal clear by the grace of the Lord. One who attains this stage is a liberated soul and can see the Lord in every step of life. This is the perfection of Sambhava, as described in this mantra of Sri Isopanisad.
Okay. So it's talking about Brahminical qualifications. It's so important to come to that mode of goodness where we can perceive things in proper perspective. It means that, what does it mean that? It means that, you know, we're in mode of passion, our prominent thoughts are to actually enjoy, even though we may be practicing devotional service, like I said previously. But in the mode of goodness, we're more serious. You know, we understand what we should do when we do it as best possible. It's called duty, dutiful devotional service, doing what we wouldn't ordinarily want to do. This is described in Bhagavad Gita 2.64, I think. That we'll do what Krishna wants us to do instead of what we want to do. And if he doesn't want us to do something, we won't do it, even though ordinarily we would do it. So actually, when we do things like that, we actually become transcendental. We overcome the influence of the material energy, and we're situated in a transcendental position just by virtue of following that principle. And then very quickly we can actually stay in that position. We become, you know, it's like habituated, and we get Krishna's mercy at that point, and he's able to sustain us. This is in 9.22. It says, Ananyas chintiyanto mam yeganaha pariupaste tesham nityabhayuktanam yogakshemam vahamyaham. It says, you know, to those who are dedicated to serving me with bhakti, those who, then it says, then he actually maintains what progress we've made. He supports that, and he gives us what we're lacking. So this is what it means. that he gives us the understanding. Tesham satata yuktam bhajatam paripurvakam 10:10. So what does it mean? It means we only have to be sincere, that's all. And every day we tested how sincere we are, aren't we? You know. Oh well, yeah, no, I'm not ready for that yet. But you know, at some point we'll think, you know, we'll get pinched by the material energy until we think, I'm ready, I'm ready. Okay. Any questions or comments? So it's got a minute till we've got a little bit of time. Has Padma settled in the south?
It's nicer up north, Maharaj.
Hey.
Yeah.
I'll leave it there, Maharaj.
Okay. You don't know where you've got until it's gone. Okay. So we'll see everybody next week, hopefully, and we'll carry on with mantra 14, and we'll complete this section on worship of the Asambhu and Asambhuta and the worship of the Sambhuta. Asambhuta means the material worship, or that which is not supreme, demigods like that, and Sambhuta means worship of the transcendental Lord. Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna,
Hare
everybody.
Krishna.